again, the two articles, Secretary Mayorkas was impeached, so this now moves to the Senate. The House will take those articles over. We know, again, the plan for who will present the case. It would be Mark Green, who chairs the Homeland Security Committee, Republican from Tennessee, Mike McCall from Texas, Clay Higgins from Louisiana, Ben Cline from Virginia, Michael Guest from Mississippi, Andy Biggs from Arizona. You've got Andrew Gabardino, August Pfluger, and Harriet Hageman, Laura Lee, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So you got a big group there, again, to present that case. The question now becomes, though, you're taking it to a Democrat Senate.
So you're not going to get a conviction. So let's be clear. The article, he's been impeached. Now, all that means is the process has been set up. So the House does the impeachment. The trial of the impeachment goes on in the Senate. I think there's a significant likelihood that the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer from New York, Senator Schumer, will move, if he has the votes, for a motion to dismiss before any evidence is presented. It's a motion that, like you would file in a court before you start a trial. And if they get 51, all it takes is a simple majority. And if he gets that, it's over with.
And we have been looking at if there were a couple Democrats that or one Democrat that switched over and felt like they were too uncomfortable because of the state they represent switching. If it's a procedural matter, which that would likely fall under that by a parliamentarian, the vice president can be the tiebreaker vote on procedural matters. So Kamala Harris could come in and be the 51st vote to take this over the line for the motion to dismiss. That's not guaranteed yet because they right now we haven't gone through we don't have all the rules set up for this style of impeachment. It hasn't happened in 150 years.
Yeah, so it's different than a presidential impeachment, which is chaired by the presiding officers of the Chief Justice of the United States. There's been 4 impeachments in our U.S. history of presidents, 2 on President Trump. 2 other presidents have been going through impeachment proceedings. But this is different. And I think you have to have a reality here of what is likely to happen. So, look, the border crisis is significant. ACLJ Action, by the way, our team did a great job of getting, I think, was it 7,200 letters to Capitol Hill urging that this happens. And the problem you have is Mayorkas goes up there. Remember, he wasn't even acknowledging it was a significant crisis until really forced to do it. And of course, he's taken his lead, a lot of it from the administration. So that's a lot of what's going on here. But I think we have to be clear what's at stake. The House got this through, but Jordan, we got to look at this by a 1-vote margin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 1-vote margin. That doesn't really matter now because it moves out.
He's impeached.
It moves out. He's been impeached.
So you think Mike Johnson did his job by getting it out of the House?
Yes. I mean, they had a little bit of hiccup last week because of, again, you had the Majority Leader. Yeah. So he was getting treatment, wasn't able to make it back in time. And Al Green was able to come from the hospital to vote. So some hijinks there. But at the end of the day, when the vote was taken, even with losing a couple Republicans, and by the way, we're now down because of the race last night in New York, that special election that Republicans lost by just 10 points in that former seat held by Republican Santos, which will have another election in November.
Yep.
That means we are down to a 2 vote majority in the House of Representatives.
By the way, our team's researched it out. Generally speaking, vice presidents, because they're the presiding president of the Senate, can vote in Senate procedural motions if there is a tie. And that a motion to dismiss, I think, would be deemed a procedural motion. We've got a call coming in on Mayorkas. Let's go ahead and take it. That's line 4.
Rachel in New York on line 4. You're on the air.
Hello. I'm just calling you with all the mess that's going on at the border and everything surrounding the impeachment. Why is it going to be killed? I mean, clearly there's a big problem. Why don't they see it as a problem?
Well,
I don't get that.
Because an impeachment is uniquely a political process. So what happens is the House voted to impeach. That means the person should be removed from office. At least that's what the House is alleging. It's basically like an indictment, except it's in a political context. Now, the important part here is it goes to the Senate. And when it goes to the Senate, they actually try the case. And to get a conviction in the Senate, the Founding Fathers said it would take 2/3 of a vote to impeach. That is not like, I don't see any way in which that happens. But the reason it was important for the House to do it was to get on record that this border crisis is a crisis, and the Homeland Security Director, who's in charge of all of this, is not taking the necessary steps to protect the country. And it's malfeasance as a form of high crime or misdemeanor But as Gerald Ford said, a high crime and misdemeanors, whatever the majority of Congress says it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much up to Congress. I think the bigger issue now that's at play with the Senate is, are there enough senators in Democrat senators in red states that are just under too much pressure to vote yes on a motion to dismiss? I would imagine if that vote will even be close, Chuck Schumer would take the risk of trying to get the motion to dismiss to see if he could get it to 50-50 to bring in the vice president.
No doubt.
Because again, there's really only a couple of those senators left. It's not impeaching the president or removing the president here, and they would argue this is the American people don't want us wasting our time on this. They want us to do it on legislation. So you can see again how we're looking at probably end of this month so February 25th, sometime after that, the articles will be delivered, and we will then this kind of process begins on whether or not we're going to actually get a full scale trial in the U.S. Senate. I wouldn't be spending so much time on the motion to dismiss, except for I think in this one it is very relevant, and just again because of the slim majorities. You want to play that sound? For over the weekend. On NBC's Meet the Press, when Mayorkas joined Kristen Welker. Take a listen.
Do you bear responsibility for what is happening at the border, what the president himself has called a crisis?
It certainly is a crisis, and we don't bear responsibility for a broken system, and we're doing a tremendous amount within that broken system. But fundamentally, Congress is the only one who can fix it.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, the president has executive authority through executive orders, which this president, no president's failed to utilize. He could have also not reversed some of the Trump policies that would have prevented these massive surges. He did on day one. That was part of what he went in on. So Mayorkas' answer there's not technically even legally correct.
Dan in Minnesota on line 6. Hey, Dan.
Hello, guys. God bless you. Thanks for what you do. Obviously, all of us commenters here in America know that Mayorkas is breaking the law. According to Marjorie Taylor Greene, there are 6 pages of laws that he's broken. He's releasing these people into the country and, beyond cutting the wire in Texas, wanting to cut the wire and letting people flood in. It's absolutely a joke. We have to have this vote because we need to identify these cowards and spineless politicians who aren't defending this country. And can we impeach, a question for you, can we impeach some of these congressmen who refuse to stand up for the America that we know and love?
No, they're elected representatives, so that would not be a ground for impeachment.
Yeah, I mean, so they'll have to answer to their constituents, which they do every other year.
Some decided not to run again.
Yeah, I mean, so Ken Buck, congressman from Colorado, Republican, voted no. Tom McClintock from California voted no, and Mike Gallagher as well joined those 210 Democrats in casting nay votes. There were 2 Democrats, 2 Republican members who didn't vote. Sometimes that's for personal reasons, and they just can't get their health reasons. So I'm not going to cast any blame on those 2 or those 4 at this time. But they were very clear about that. They were always no votes. I believe they were no votes last week as well. So not a surprise. Their constituents will know that. And if they get challenged in a primary, certainly the primary candidates will let that be known. But they think they're making the right decision for their constituents.
No, and the fact of the matter is, look, we just need to deal with the status as it is. Mayorkas has been impeached. He's not going to be convicted in the United States Senate. I don't think anybody has an expectation of that. I think it's more likely than not. I don't even know if there'll be a trial in the United States Senate. I think there's a 50-50 chance, at least maybe more likely than not 60-40, that, in fact, what you end up with is a motion to dismiss that they vote, which is a simple majority, and the vice president can break it if there's a tie. So because she is then the president of the Senate. So we're just giving you the facts as they exist. But Mike Johnson did his job, the Speaker of the House, by moving it out of the United States Senate with articles of impeachment.